Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Well, today we have entered day 200 of the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. And in the northern area of operations, the northeastern area of operations, southeast of Kharkov, the situation continues to deteriorate for Russian forces. Russian forces have been pushed out of areas such as strong points that had been occupied by Russian forces, such as Izum in this area, and Ukrainian forces continue to press both east and northeast against Russian forces as we speak. It appears right now Russian forces in this area are in a headlong retreat away from Ukrainian forces. Now, the question is, are the Ukrainians looking at quite possibly entering Russia proper? Could the Ukrainian military make a move towards Belgorod? What Russian forces are in position to stop a Ukrainian move from the south towards Belgorod? And at this point, given the situation on the ground, we're really not sure. We can't really answer that question. But we do know one thing for certain is this has been one hell of a setback for Russian forces. It's apparent that Ukrainian forces amassed in forested areas in preparation for this attack, attempting to conceal their operations again from Russian surveillance assets. And we know that that was unsuccessful for the Russians. The Russians were not able to see this very, very large buildup of Ukrainian forces and then interdict those Ukrainian forces. And it's got to be, I would say, mystifying for a lot of Russian watchers, a lot of old Cold War analysts who watched the Russian and or Soviet military very, very closely, because it's very obvious that in one category that the Russians are significantly lacking is the ability to deploy synthetic aperture radars that have the ability to look downwards towards moving armored metal objects that could be hidden in forests along roadways and what have you. And the United States has that ability to see that occurring. If the United States had been in the Russian position, I have no doubt that the United States would have been able to see the positioning of those Ukrainian forces and then called in appropriate airstrikes to then negate that offensive punch by the Ukrainian military. But it's apparent now that that capability either is not being used or it just doesn't exist. And there's been lots of talk now that that certain Russian battlefield commanders at times almost feel like they are fighting an enemy from the future, and that goes a long way to say in terms of some of the technologies that the United States and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization are being brought to bear in this ongoing conflict. The intel picture, as I talked about before, for the Ukrainians is probably greater than what the Russians have against the Ukrainians. So I would say at this point, in all probability, the Ukrainians have better situational awareness than the Russians do. And that's only because the NATO alliance in the United States is providing them that enhanced picture of what's happening on the ground, especially the disposition of Russian forces. And then you kind of, again, I've talked about before, is you throw in that other element where you combine that sensing and intelligence picture with some of these advanced weapon systems that have been brought in or are being used by the Ukrainians. It's making it very, very difficult for the Russian military, and that's what we're kind of seeing on the ground. But the biggest point I must make right now is really the inability of Russian forces to see this massive buildup of Ukrainian forces that executed this operation here. We'll scroll in a little closer where you can see. And again, this was a multi-brigade operation that took place, and obviously those forces that launched said operation had to stage areas near into to the west and southwest of Kharkov and Izum. And then that operation was executed. It appears to have been executed very well. It went after many of the weak points of the Russian military, and as of right now, has been successful. I can only imagine that the Russian Ministry of Defense is really scrambling right now. Heads are probably going to roll. It's very difficult to say what's happening in the Kremlin right now, and again, that should be worrisome, because who knows what the Russian military is willing to do next, especially if the Ukrainian military decides to enter Russia proper. Now, I would say that is remote at this point. Obviously, it would be a tremendous escalation, and we haven't seen it as of yet. But I have to say, I have to wonder what forces the Russians have right now that would prevent a Ukrainian drive towards Belgorod at this point. And if the Ukrainians were able to do what they were able to do south and southeast of Kharkov, who's to say what they could do in the direction towards Belgorod at this moment? I know that's kind of getting the cart before the horse, and we're not there yet. But again, I think a lot of people are still kind of scratching their heads in terms of where was the Russian Air Force? Where was the Russian intel on this buildup, and why weren't the Russians able to bring in its vastly superior Air Force and prevent this operation from happening? And at this point, we just don't have an answer for that. And maybe at some point we will. We will learn more information later. And again, we're also keeping an eye on Russian countermeasures. There will be Russian countermeasures. This is not going to probably, in all probability, go unanswered by Russian forces. If, in fact, the Russian forces have not been degraded to such an extent that they're unable to launch such an operation. But again, we'll know more about that later as the war continues to develop and we get more information. But that's it for today. Again, thanks for joining us, and we're watching things very, very closely on the ground. Very, very interesting turn of events. What has happened on the ground in Ukraine as we speak. So again, thanks for joining us, and as always, have a good day.